Well, hello and Merry Christmas to those of you who celebrate around the world. We're going to get you ready for game week 18. And not a whole lot in that 0 to 5 range this week. We're going to start with Anthony Gill in Washington. True flyer of flyers, but only 69 cents for his lowest ask. He is a guy that plays sporadically here, so if you luck out and get a night when he plays, you might get a couple points. Really, anybody who plays who's in the 0 to 5 range is worth taking a look at, and he's one of those guys. Upcoming schedule this week is a back-to-back for Washington, so tough Orlando defense, followed by Toronto the next night. They're both at home. He may get into one of those, and at 4, you could probably use him. Chris Duarte in Sacramento has appeared in 25 games this year, so he gets in almost every game, at least a little bit. Last game with Malik Monk out, he bumped up to 18 minutes. If Monk's out again, I'd say he's a decent chance to put you up some points, but he's pretty unproductive at 0.69, so it's going to take him quite a few minutes to get you anything of real value. But $1.36 is still so cheap that I think he's got to be worth looking at. Joel Embiid sprained his ankle last game, obviously a huge loss for the Sixers. Their rotations are going to get a little bit of a test this week. Furkan Korkmaz is a 5 L10, played in 20 games, so he's in there every so often, not very many minutes. He'd need to get a couple minutes for you to really make some points, but he's a guy that can get hot from 3. Another guy that's $1.36. Maybe the rotation shakes up a little bit, or they get blown out and he gets in there a little bit. So another guy that's just on my radar. Dale and Terry in Chicago, we talked about last week a little bit. He's been playing since Torrey Craig went out. He's getting that 15 to 20 minute range right now. Only 0.62 points per minute. And I believe his top game on the season is an 11. So not a whole lot of upside here. Maybe he pops for one, gets you 20, 25 if he gets hot. That's kind of what I'm hoping for. His L10 still real low at 6, and his price is $1.98. Just one game this week for the Kings, but JaVale McGee might be a guy you might want to think about picking up. He seems to have wrestled the backup center minutes away from Kessler Edwards again. There aren't a lot of those to go around, but he is a productive 1.07 point per minute. He's an L10 of 7, and he's only $1.59. Another team with one game this week is the Hawks. Guy that's been getting some run, and I think he even started a game or two, is Garrison Matthews. Getting about 17 minutes a game lately. Very unproductive, 0.5 points per minute. So this is definitely a flyer. The playing time's there right now. He's only a 7 L10, so if you want to throw him in and hope you get lucky. Jayshawn Tate in Houston put up a nice set of games earlier in the season, some 20s, 27, 23, 21. Right now, he's an L10 of 8. $1.58 is a pretty reasonable price. He does get run. He gets 17 or so minutes a night when he's healthy. And he's in a pretty long lull of bad games, so if he can break out of that, he can certainly score you in the 20s from time to time, and might be a good value at $1.58. The Dallas Mavericks actually have 3 games this game weeks. Richaun Holmes has been inconsistent with his minutes. He did not play at all last game, 22 minutes the game before. So with the 3 games this week, I think a back-to-back against some tough teams, he's going to be out there. I would say he's a decent value right now. He's only a 9 L10. He's only $2.49. So Lively's availability is still in question for this week. If it's just Dwight Powell and Holmes, I think Holmes definitely gets some run. Talked a little bit about Alec Burks last week. He's just too good a player to have this low an L10 and this low of a price combination. Still cheap. I think this is going to happen. 2 games this week. Got a home game against Brooklyn, and then they go on the road to face Boston. His minutes are just really sporadic. Detroit just is kind of confusing with what they're doing right now. So I think he's going to have a game where he just gets hot early and stays in. And if you look at his game logs, he's certainly capable of carrying you. He's had 40 this year. He's had 30, multiple in the 20s. He just needs some minutes, needs some consistency. If it ever shows up, I think he's definitely a guy you're going to want. Shake Milton's been less than impressive in a Timberwolves uniform this year, but he is generally in the rotation. He's played in 26 of their games, so he's right up there with everyone else on that team, games-wise. Minutes are a little inconsistent with Towns out. I'm not sure how long Towns is going to be out. It didn't look good, so maybe a couple more games. He got 14 minutes last game. The Wolves have 2 this week. They've got Dallas at home. They travel to OKC, so one tough, one easier matchup. I think he's kind of interesting. $1.36 is so cheap for anybody that plays in the rotation and has this low in L10. With Josh Giddey going down with an ankle injury, Kenrich Williams is a guy that can fit in pretty much anywhere. He can play all 5 positions. He's been getting more minutes recently, just coming off of 30. Nice L10 of 11, price of $3.16. His minutes have been on the rise. He's fairly productive at 0.9 points per minute, so maybe you got to consider here. I swear every time I throw Jeff Green in, he does great for me. He just randomly puts up good numbers here and there. L10 of 12, cost still $1.58. His game logs are all over the place, and that's what keeps his L10 fairly low. He's had 2 negative threes. He's had as high as 28. So with an L10 of 12, you never know what you're going to get, but he's been good for me. I would consider him. I know I keep talking about George Niang, but he's bound to break out one of these days. L10 keeps going down because he's underperforming. If we look at his game logs, he's in a bad lull right now. He did have a stretch earlier this year where he's scoring in the 20s pretty often. Now that his L10's down this low, I think you got to keep considering him. It's going to keep getting lower too. Within the next couple game weeks, we'll be down in that 11 range. So I think he's definitely a guy to consider. I think Bismack Biyombo from Memphis is just too cheap right now for his level of production. He's going to get you in that 20 to 25 minute range at a minimum. On any given night, he's played a lot with Morant since Morant came back. 14 L10. He's coming off of a game where he put up 27. Definitely somebody worth looking at this week. With Jalen Suggs missing the last 2 games, Gary Harris has played 34 and 35 minutes in those games, which is way up from his season average. Not real productive at 0.7 points per minute, but playing that many minutes, L10 of 14 looks pretty sweet. Still under $3. This one seems like a dart throw in Phoenix. I would probably rather go with Drew Eubanks, but last game they broke out Udoka Azubuike. He hadn't played since November 5th. He played 20 minutes, went 5 for 5 from the field, 11 points, 11 rebounds, 28 Sorare points. So a really nice performance. His point per minute looks good, but obviously a very small sample size. They do have Dallas tomorrow, so you could probably use him for the Christmas day if you really want to. Or you can use him this week. He has at least one good matchup. Nurkic is out tomorrow. Sacramento runs a pretty tight operation as far as their rotation goes. Keon Ellis has taken over the backup point guard minutes from Davion Mitchell. I would say if Fox ever misses again, you're going to want this guy. He's under $3 now. L10 of 14. He can definitely beat that. He's had a 40 and a 33 already this year. Interesting guy. They really like him. Xavier Tillman in Memphis is a guy whose minutes I expect to increase as he plays more and more with Morant. 0.95 points per minute, 16 L10 and under $3. He's pretty interesting. If we look at his game logs, he put up 50 in the first game of the season. Hasn't been close to that since. That L10 keeps going down. I think if his minutes go up, he can get back to a level where he's putting up 30s and 40s at least. All right, Aaron Holiday in Houston, pretty good shooter, 45%, 43 from three-point range. He's at 16 right now. That should be coming down a little bit. He's had a bunch of bad games in a row. When his three-point shot's falling and he gets hot, he can put up some decent numbers. If you look at his game logs, he had a 44 this year, a 34. Last bunch of games have been pretty bad. He's going to be down in that 13 range next game week. So this is a guy to keep an eye on for sure. You can fit him in a lot of different ways. Well, if there's one constant in Detroit, it's that Isaiah Stewart's going to get his minutes. 30 and a half on the year on average, 22 points per game. His L10 is 17. He's actually been getting more minutes than that lately. He's coming off his biggest game of the season. He just put up a 44. This is a guy who could win you a week. I was a little concerned in New Orleans with everyone healthy that Najee Marshall's minutes were going to dry up. That just has not been the case. He's given them great minutes off the bench. He's still getting close to 20 most nights. 0.97 points per minute, so really good production. 158 is way too cheap for this guy. L10 is 17. If we look at his game logs, you've got a 20, 28, a 30, and a 37, so every other is pretty good, keeping that L10 fairly low but putting out some good production. I kind of like when guys show you what they're capable of and then cool off, so it makes them more appealing. Isaiah Joe went through a streak where he was in the 30s and high 20s, hitting a lot of threes. He's a really good shooter. Recently, he's been a little cold. He should get it going again. With Giddey out, he might get more of an opportunity to score. L10's all the way down to 17 now. Definitely a guy I would take a look at the $2.50 price point here. 0.91 points per minute. Well, playing alongside the top assist man in the league is good for anybody, but with Halliburton dishing the ball to him, Jalen Smith's a person I like to take a look at. 1.23 points per minute, so really good production when he's in there. Only 15 minutes a game. He's dealt with a lot of injuries this year, but this guy's been shooting it well from three. He can run the floor. He can grab you some rebounds. If Turner's ever out, he'd be a great guy to have. Isaiah Jackson's been great. So Indiana Bigs have been very good this year. $2.56, just too cheap for this guy. As we mentioned earlier, Embiid is going to be out tomorrow for the Christmas Day game. Not sure going forward if he's going to miss more time, but when he missed last time, Marcus Morris drew the start, played big minutes, like in that 30-minute range. He's a 0.9 points per minute, so he's been pretty effective in his role. 241 is pretty cheap. I think he gets to start, gets the most playing time of the Philadelphia Bigs, and he could certainly do it for you. He can still shoot the three. He's going to be in there. Last guy I'm going to highlight today is Dario Saric from Golden State. Minutes have been coming down lately with the emergence of Trace Jackson-Davis, but he's still averaging 20 minutes a night. I'd say he's playing between 15 and 20 as a floor. If he gets a little hot, he might go more than that. 1.06 points per minute, still really good. L10 of just 19, so he can beat that pretty easily. If we look at his game logs, he's had some in the 30s, high 30s, bunch of those, high 20s, so he's capable of helping you out. I hope that helps you build your lineups for Game Week 18. Good luck this week, and happy holidays, everybody. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Almost to 100.